good afternoon. I am doing some dyeing this afternoon, so I thought I'd do a little video and show you how I dye wool, which is by no means how you should dye wool, because I totally made it up and I don't know if it's right, but do you know what, it works. So the best advice I could give you is just to kind of bash on. So this is a pan of boiling water. This is a pan of blue that didn't quite take, so I've put it in again. Blue seems to be really hard work today. I want this here to be like a greeny kind of yellowy greeny, so it's sort of like a sage green, olive green kind of thing. So this here is, I'll show you, all in one dye. It's acid dye. It's from something called Colourcraft. They were at Woolfest and it looks like this. Little tiny granules of powder, and you don't need an awful lot, she says as she tips the whole thing in. And this water's already boiling. Yep, totally boiling. And here on the floor I have my wool that I've just washed. It's still wet. I don't know if that makes a difference or not, but I've done it both ways and neither way seems to be the right or wrong, to be honest. I have a metal kitchen utensil, because if you use a wooden one you end up with wooden multicoloured spoons. I've also done that. Use a metal pan, don't use a nice white enamel one. I've also done that. So get your wool, literally, it's not perfect, it's got bits in, it isn't perfectly whitewashed, it is just washed. And I'm going to dump it in a pan of boiling water and dye. They say you should let it put enough wool in so that the wool can, you know, move around and things. I just hoy it in. Like, actually just hoy it in. If I'm short on water, I put a bit more water in. If I'm short on wool, I put a bit more wool in. If I feel like the dye isn't taking properly, I put a bit more of that in. Like, literally just have a bash, have a go. So I'll stick that in there like that. Possibly have too much wool in, but you know what, doesn't actually matter. It looks like that. You can see the dye's all underneath it. And then I'll just keep kind of pressing it down for a few minutes. It's taking already, which is handy. The only thing you've got to be careful of is if you think it's taken and you go, oh, I love that colour, you pull it out because you like the colour that it is, and then you run it under the tap and you find that the tap literally washes the dye off and there's nothing on it, and you end up with a slightly whitewashed, like grey kind of wool, which is totally not what you want, and it's really rubbish, which is what happened with this blue here. So I've put it in again. As you can see, the bits that are wet with blue dye, and then can you see how light it is when the dye is not actually clinging to it? So when I wash that off now, it's just going to be kind of a grey kind of... I also wouldn't recommend sticking your hands in it, but do you know what? Never one to conform. So I'll keep moving this around for a couple of minutes. These things, they didn't actually come with any instructions at all, so I just made it up, and I don't seem to have gone wrong so far. If I want more vivid colours, I put more dye in. If I want some nice, like, you know, light pinks that are really fashionable at the minute, and creamy kind of oranges, I literally just dip them in and dip them out, and that seems to, I don't know if there's a right way to do it, but that is how I do it. So this is, let's have a look. If you lift it up, you'll see it's darker towards the bottom. That there is like an orangey, greeny, it is green, believe it or not, yellowy. It'll go with the sagey kind of colours really well. I just get as much out as I fancy, hoy it in that pan, and then that pan there, I'll take it over to the sink, dump the whole thing in and wash it with cold water. And while that's boiling, I'll do 3 or 4 of these, keep putting wool in and taking it out. And every time you'll see that your water gets less and that's just tends to be how I use it up. Some people pour the dye into bottles and things. I've done that, and I've also smashed the bottles as well, or the bottles have leaked over winter, or when they're in the potting shed outside, one of the bottles froze and split the thing, and everything ended up with bloody wine bottle, because it was a wine bottle. I thought glass was the way forward. It was in a wine bottle and it split and it went all over the potting shed, and I ended up with a red shelf on the potting shed. So I just use up the water as much, and then I just tip it, which is totally fine. And do you know what? It works for me. So I do have some woad blue in the garden. I'm going to do a separate video for that one because that's a little bit more interesting. It is a plant that I've grown. I bought some seeds last year and they're quite nice now. They're a nice sized plant. So I've never done that before. I'll be totally making it up, but I'll have a bash and I'll video it as well, just in case it goes really well, or even better if it goes really wrong. That could be quite amusing. So yeah, I'm going to carry on dyeing, and I'll do a few different colours today. Greens, yellows, I've done some pinks and purples. I hope that blue will turn out, because otherwise it's just a lot of wasted dye and wool. But never mind. Right, I hope you have a good day. TTFN.